Well, I'm very happy to talk to you now and share some of my experience on wanderings, on maybe findings concerning the topic of what I nickname a little bit deaf paraphernalia. It's which I call also remains, human remains, archive, ruins, etc. I will consider, as the title said, its relationship with what I call, on some anthropologists, called the life-giving process. But before I enter the subject, let me say some words about me. Who am I? That's a question. Well, my name is Marc Rochette, and I'm a psychotherapist. I live in Strasbourg, France, and it's where I work as a psychotherapist. More specifically, I'm a Gestalt therapist. That is, I practice a humanistic therapy for individuals and groups. And what is, I think, important for you to know is that before being a therapist, I've been trained and I've been working as an anthropologist. I've been trained in social and cultural anthropology in Paris. And then I've been working for 25 years as an anthropologist in France, mainly in French cultural institutions like Bibliothèque Nationale de France, that's the French National Library. And I've been doing research for ethnographic purpose on anthropological findings, mostly in the South Pacific, namely in the Fiji Islands. While working for French cultural institution, I was, and for Bibliothèque Nationale de France, I was doing research on the archive of the anthropology and of the social sciences. And also, I taught on the topics, and I had many opportunities to organize some colloquium, workshop on the topic of archives, and ask different people from different horizons to think about these old materials that we call archives. And among the different experiments I had at that time, one of the most exciting, I should say, was in 2015, when Arts, Letter and Lumber in the United States invited me, along with 25 different personalities from all over the world, to have an experience on the sharing of experience on knowledge on archives belonging to Robert Oppenheimer, let's say the father of the bomb. It was about 132 doodles which were kept in a private collection. So, what I will do now is that I shall sum up and resume some of the anthropological questioning and findings which I dealt with at the time at Art, Letters and Numbers. And also, I will do a rehearsal, but also I will make new points of view, deliver new findings on, due to my position as a psychotherapist, I will also put some light from a therapist's point of view on what can be our relation with what I call the paraphernalia of death, the things from the past. And more importantly, I will underline the relationship that I see between this token of the past and the development of the human potential and well-being. That is, the way to sustain a creative process, which I name after the anthropologist Arthur Maurice Ockart, a life-giving process. Okay, so the first part will be some general anthropological consideration on the remains, let's say, the leftover, the object and paraphernalia from the past. When I think about this, my first thought who came to my mind was a sentence from Marc, a very well-known sentence. Because Marx thought that the past is haunting the brain of the present generation, and the future generation as well. He stated, and I quote him, "The tradition of all dead generation wait like nightmare on the brain of the living." And in this point of view, remains are the most potent conveyor of this kind of nightmare. For they can be used as avatara of the past, that is, incarnation of the past in the present. Remains is an overlapping word. It's not really a concept. It's rather an anthropological category which include historical objects in the museum, archives, ruins, monuments, documents, testimony of the past. Any manifested sort which are kept only as proof of the present of the past, proof of the past for the present. Sometimes we can hear that it's said it's not only kept for the present, but it's kept as well for the future generation. Isn't it singular that we human shall kept token of the past, byproduct of the past, supposedly not only for our present, but for a future of which we don't know much. The first thing I want to underline about this death paraphernalia, the remains, is that they are testimony. And in this sense, we can say that human being is not only, as Aristotle put it, a zoon politikon, a political animal, but is also a zoon archeon, that is, an animal who is keeping archives, keeping presence of the past, of its past, who produce remains on archives of his deeds and actions. An animal who can build its politics on the leaderships, on the politics, to handle that remains. Remains as things from the past are kept apart. In a certain way, they leave the world of the nature and the physics to enter the world of the metaphysics. They are kept out of the natural processes, for every creation. That is, one day decaying and dying. As metaphysical objects, they convey representation and ideology. They enter the world of the things which don't follow the natural process of growing and decaying by themselves. But they are, by the human presence, questioned, unled, transformed, and represented. Remains are also a very human experience. There is a very typically human experience of the remains. The experience with the things from the past. I think we are the only animals who is doing this. An experience which drive ourself and mind into a territory named the past, and which prevent us to live the present, and as an experience without traces, without remains of the past. In a very famous conference held at the Freud Museum in London and published under the title Archives Evil, Jacques Derrida saw the processes of the relationship to the archives as a drive toward death. By using this Freudian concept, which applied to man, he suggests that the quest of memory traces is a will to disappear from the present and to go back somewhere to a primal source. This very interesting view rejoins a sometimes symbolic figure of the return to the origin, a primal mother, the wish to return to a primal mother, a mother of oblivion. A kind of mother of all unmanifested memories. It can be symbolic of the ultimate outcome of the death drive. That is, an unconscious wish to not leaving the womb, the matrix, because it's so perfect, because time has no manifestation there. That make me remember that another famous analyst, Carl Gustav Jung, once said, if our parents were perfect, we shall never leave them. And it reminds me also that in the psychological sphere. Winnicott talk about the good enough mother, the one who is giving enough care, who is permitting the young child of making a very safe image of the mother, but she's not perfect. So he can leave her and be at safe with this positive image of the mother. This leads me to the first key that I want to share with you now about the remains on the deaf paraphernalia. Remains on deaf paraphernalia are objects of belief, and maybe the most potent ones that ever existed. Remains as objects of belief are objects who produce a twofold process for one who enters in contact with it. They can be viewed first as objects who's got the faculty to speak. They speak a language which sounds familiar, that is, the language of the past. A language which can make sense, that we can decipher. Testimony of the past on those produce certainty that the past is still in the present. They are the token of the past with us, and by this way, they are the object who shape the experience of the present. They add something to the present. We frame it. The first step in this process is the enlightened view of our relation to the past. That is, we can understand the past and bring it to the present to feed it. Objects from the past can nurture our experience of the present and help us to live up our existence. We can freely ask questions to the past through its object, and they will deliver clear answers to feed our present and experience, etc. They reveal something for our betterment. In the meantime, they can produce an obscuring process. That is, they give a color to our experience of the present. And on this topic, we are less aware of what it does to us. So there's a paradox of the remains, is that they are viewed as testimony of truth from the past, which can make it difficult to live to the present, in the present, sorry. Let's face it. It is well known that there are Weltanschauung foundation stones. That is, they provide a material experience with the past to ensure and build belief, value, cultural structure, etc. One shall remain in this perspective that it is well known that everybody can be aware that it's not because we are in contact with things from the past that we live in the past, but it's exactly the process of the belief. the belief process grow out of a negation of it, like Freud once found in what he called the Verneinung process, that is a process of denegation. If you say, for example, well, I keep this thing from the past, but I don't live in the past. It means, yes, you really somewhere live a little bit in the past. The brain on the inconscious doesn't understand the negation. So when you put things from the past, even who you denied their importance, is that they are really present. And this leads me to my second key. Collecting and preserving remains on death paraphernalia is an act to prevent the fear of death. I quote Sigmund Freud again, who said, if you want to endure life, prepare yourself to death. Well, it was not the first man who thought that. Let's think, for example, about the French philosopher Montaigne. Knowing how to stand towards the conscience of death is one of the most difficult postures for human beings to assume. Because there exists a fear of death and a drive toward death, there exists as well, and this is my opinion, a drive to collect. That is, a human tendency to keep out of time, out of the process of decay, objects whom become those symbol of the denial of the death. The French psychoanalyst Jacques Lacan called these dynamics which make possible to occult the shadow of the empire of death among the human. He called it an archive or a monument. An archive or a monument which make possible to fill up the gap opened by all the lost images of the past. A gap which he named the censored chapter, and we name it the unconscious. The subject kept from the past stand as symbol of our unconscious, of what happened in the past and that we don't know. This led me straight to the key number 3. Remains on death paraphernalia are shadows. They belong to the unconscious. They are literally things from the past. And they can be seen in this perspective as eidolon, the Greek word, who can be translated by idols, that is, images, copies, trace of what we kept from the past, shadows of experiences. Now, I want to invite you to consider 2 ways of dealing with this death paraphernalia, the remains, from an anthropological point of view. The first cycle I want to observe is the use of remains on paraphernalia of death as documents or monuments of proof. Proof, uncertainty. In this process, objects from the past are here viewed as objects of certainty. They are kept to say that the past did happen. It's a process who come from the Occidental world, from the Western world, and from the Enlightenment. For example, the philosopher Hegel named it reason in history. In this perspective, objects are viewed like documents, and they are kept apart, for they can speak to us, for they can tell us what the past was. And we are supposed, with methods, on the help of reason, to ask questions to this subject on documents, and they will kindly answer to us, bringing back to the present the experience of the past for us to build a better present, to live a present attuned with the past. But this process is also twofold and paradoxical. For, while something is revealed from the past, also in the same process, something is obscured as well. When you put light somewhere, you put darkness to another part. This is the process of history making, writing, interpreting. It seeks certainty and truth, enrich as well, controversy, reformulation, and the hocus pocus of different point of view. There is no clear image on experience of the past shared. Here, certainty meets doubt. It was on this this idea was thought with much mindfulness by the philosopher Walter Benjamin in his thesis on the philosophy of history, when he wrote, "There is no document of civilization that is not at the same time a document of barbarism." It depends on the point of view, exactly. So, although that the objects are regarded and kept for what they are supposed to permit, I mean the truth process of revealing the past in the present, they carry controversy and a gap. This is what the French anthropologist Claude Lévi-Strauss clearly saw when he was asked, how many French revolutions did happen in your own opinion? And with a trick, but with a deep thought as well, his answer was, there was as many French revolutions as there is books written about French Revolution. If we go ahead in this process of paraphernalia of death as documents or monument of proof, we should pay attention that in this perspective, The main trouble with it is that it applies to very specific posture. Conservation of the documents, monuments, on transmission. That is, the paraphernalia need a place, a neutralizing space to keep and transmit these documents and monuments. Museum, library, archive, for a perpetual transmission of the past that they convey. To keep them away from nature, from the decay of nature. Cultural documents and monuments are out of the natural process of decay. They are supposed to be secure from that. They shall stand firm. On this perspective, everyone knows that they need public policy, intervention, authority to prevent them from this decay and permit their transmission. On the archivant, the keeper of the archive, are such authority who bring the past to the present. Now, I want you to pay attention to the second circle of the human using of the paraphernalia of death. That is the ritual process. Here, we mainly encounter non-Western world, traditional, archaic societies who didn't meet the Enlightenment. Those civilizations who do not seek to revive the past through the object. Here, remains can be viewed as relics, that is, fuel for the process. Fuel for the ritual process. It came from nature, and I think about the using of human remains in cult or rituals. On this object from nature are culturally integrated by ritual manipulation. And let's say that the royal way to use these remains as a name, the cult of the dead. What is a cult of the dead in traditional society, as we have learned mostly from ethnographic evidence? It's a way to produce interaction among people, a social gathering to celebrate life, a life-giving process, to talk like Occart, through the manipulation of the corpse of a dead person, and also a proper way to farewell the deceased. That is, as my Fijian friends once told me, to wash away the footprint of the departed. Often, the closure of the ritual process implies the destruction or annihilation of the cult paraphernalia and remains. Some remains are destroyed, and some are put apart, that is, out of the world of the living. And here, the keeper of the remain is not like an archivant who is there to protect from decay and to transmit the remains, but to prevent the living to enter in contact with it. It's a well-known process which is forbidding the access to the past, putting a taboo on it. The objects are then forbidden to see, to use, to manipulate, and sometimes it's even forbidden to use their names. Destruction of the remains is annihilating their presence, removing the past, which they can bear in the present from the social life. Containing the remain is making impossible to seek the truth through it on the historical quest for certainty in the past. And we can think about two ways when sometimes they are used, human remains, traditional society. For example, in witchcraft that is using, most of the time, use human remains, that is having a forbidden activities with the remains. And we can also look at some traditional warfare in certain traditional societies, like hunting the head of your enemies was a way to prevent your enemies to perform a cult of the dead and to perform oblivion. They have to think about the deceased, about the dead. Revenge, that means thinking again about the person who is lost, and that you have to do something to your enemies. It's like putting a nightmare into your head. On these topics, you may also think about Antigone, who want to bury her brother. And to conclude this circle of the remains and paraphernalia of death in the ritual process, it reminds me, while I was writing this, of Edmond Husserl, what Husserl says about tradition. What is tradition? And the answer was the forgetting of the origins. So, and now I want to share some things about what do the world of the Gestalt therapy, to whom I belong in a certain way, can offer as a perspective to deal properly with the paraphernalia of death. So let me give you some word about what is and is not Gestalt therapy. The word Gestalt, it's a psychotherapy, so it's a way of finding wellness in your own environment. And because the word Gestalt comes from the German Gestalten, which means creating a form, Gestalt, pay attention to what form do you want to give to your existence here and now. Originally in the 60s, the Gestalt therapy, in opposite to the psychoanalysis, work only not with the past, but with the here and now. It was a kind of revolution. Now it's more integrated. What form do you want to create in relation with these things from the past? What experience do you want to create for your well-being? Does this include using or referring to the things from the past? These are some of the questions that we can ask from a Gestaltist point of view. On this, lead me to give you my key number 4. The key number 4 for a relation with the deaf paraphernalia, the remains, is offering a blank page. The idea behind this is, can we actually consider the paraphernalia of death, the remains from the past, as a blank page, on ourselves as a blank page? That means, like, if this thing from the past were absolutely new to us, but we didn't know anything about it, on that will permit us to have feelings growing out of our interaction from the thing from the past. New feelings, new sensation, new emotions. It's a stand, a way to stand in front of this object. It's a kind of meditative stand, a body posture on a state of mind. It means emptying ourselves of images, past emotions and feelings, to live afresh, to live anew the contact with this paraphernalia from the past. As if you meet them for the first time without any previous knowledge of it. We can refer to the blank page as offering to ourselves and to our encounter a genuine experience. So, this is letting a sensation growing out of the contact with the deaf paraphernalia. Eventually, it will permit us, if you try, to be aware of the right position, the right stand that we have to hold to be in contact with these items. On how do we want to contact this remains from the past. Now I turn to the fifth key of my talk. And this key is named healthy aggressivity. A full contact can be termed a healthy aggressivity. That is a way of being conscious of the difference which is between us in the present and the thing from the past brought in the present. It's a response to the emotions and sensation who came out of the void after being in the presence of the paraphernalia of death, also known as remains. Healthy aggressivity means that you have to go to contact. It doesn't mean destroy, it means taking full contact after being aware of what is the right position for this contact. And I go to the key number 6. Its name is integration. After the contact, we shall sometime leave it to integrate the experience and being nourished by it. Integration is the opposite of a process which is very contemporary and very developed, actually, which is identification. Integrating the thing from the past is not being identified with it. It's very important. Identification makes us use of the infantile mechanism of confluence, that is, hanging on, swallowing whole, while integrating needs the more developed process of contact and assimilation, like chewing through, digestion. Of course, identification is easiest, where the actual life or the ideal dream is simply mirrored, but not organized into a new, more meaningful unity. Integration keeps the integrity of yourself. It's a reconciliation with items from the past. And also, it's a unification of the self. Then, I turn to the seventh key, which I named the void. The void is the process of accepting to leave the contact after the integration of what we have experienced and let ourselves going back to a state of void, of emptiness. That is to return to the emptiness of desire for the past. An emptiness of identification to the past. And this is a very powerful concept coming from the Gestalt therapy, who theorize how a human experience can proceed to be fully lived, to provide all the good for the human person. And maybe it rejoins what Martin Heidegger very intuitively figured out when he discussed the concept of aletheia in his course on the Greek philosopher Parmenides, lectured in 1942. For he said, aletheia is more a process, an action toward, a posture. It's not a truth concept as it is usually translated. It means, and it is out of forgetting. Aletheia means out of forgetting. And still, it kept hidden. It's what Heidegger understood when reading Parmenides. And he remarked that it was in opposite to all the pseudos, what he calls the pseudos, the false. Let's say, the paraphernalia who want to bring to the present a definite and monolithic truth from the past. We can say that for Heidegger, processing and creative conflict are the two legs on which stands the aletheia. That is, protecting a thing from the past. And now I will turn to some conclusive remarks. Die and become. Said that. Dying and becoming. This is exactly what is possible in a creative process with the things from the past, with the paraphernalia from the past, who can haunt them if we don't pay attention to our posture toward it. Some artists, performers, creators, what happens at Arts Letters and Numbers in March 2015, when we performed after being in an immersive experience with some archive from Oppenheimer. Also, what happened in some ritual action, modern ritual action, like the one which were filmed by the French movie maker Jean Rouch in 1952. The Man Masters is the title of the film. And it receives the great prize in 1957 at the Venice Mostra. In conclusion to filming this incredible ritual, incredible because creative ritual, Jean Rouch talked about remedies that we do not yet know. Remedies that we do not yet know. Maybe things went a little bit further now, and I had the pleasure to welcome a performance in 2017 by the French dance company named Dodis Caden at Bibliothèque Nationale de France to commemorate and put to the present this fantastic creation first made by African people in Accra, capital of Ghana, in 1952. And I take notice that often it is the creative process of performer or meditators, who contact this relationship to the past. That is, letting consciousness come to the body and then nurturing the whole person. And that recall me of what the neuroscientist, Professor Antonio Damasio, said about the consciousness. And I will quote it lengthily in my conclusive remarks. Damasio said that consciousness begins when the brain acquires the power to tell a story without words, who happen in the limit of the body, the story of the life, which give rhythm, time, and the different states of the living organism, which are continuously alterated by the encounter with the objects and events of the environment. That we are wholly body, mind, spirits living a full experience, transforming each experience in a life gift. That is, we open space in ourselves to welcome and feel joy and love, even in the contemplation of the thing from the past, as long as we can keep away certainty on what could happen. And I want to conclude with a quotation from Fritz Perls, father, if not the founding father of the Gestalt therapy. He said that learning is being aware that something is possible. Yes, something is possible. It conveys our hopes on unwritten desire for the future. That's my conclusion. Thank you very much.